Diane Sindall was 21 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She lived in Birkenhead, Merseyside, and worked as a florist. She also took shifts behind a bar, working late nights to earn more, building something for herself. People who knew her described her as hardworking, always moving, always doing something. The kind of person who didn't wait for life to happen, she went out and built it. She had plans. She had time. At least, that's what everyone believed. On the night of the 2nd of August, 1986, nothing felt unusual. It was just another late shift. Another quiet journey home. Another night that should have ended safely. It didn't. That night, Diane left work in the early hours and started heading home through Merseyside. Somewhere along the way, her van broke down. She was stranded. Alone. In the middle of the night. It's the kind of situation most people don't think twice about until it turns into something else. Because what happened next wasn't just a random event. It was a turning point. Diane Sindall was attacked. And she was murdered. She was just 21. The news spread quickly. A young woman killed on her way home. The reaction was immediate. Fear, anger, shock. This wasn't something distant. This happened close to home. People wanted answers. And the police knew they had to move fast. The investigation began almost immediately. Officers gathered evidence. They followed leads. And before long, attention turned to one man. Peter Sullivan. He was arrested, charged, and placed at the center of a case that would define the next 38 years of his life. From the beginning, he said the same thing. He had nothing to do with Diane Sindall's murder. He denied it. Again and again. But once a person becomes the focus of an investigation, everything begins to move in one direction. Details are interpreted through that lens. Assumptions begin to take shape. And slowly, a case is built. In 1987, Peter Sullivan stood trial. The prosecution presented their version of events. They built a narrative that placed him at the center of Diane's death. To the jury, it was enough. The verdict came back. Guilty. That single word changed everything. Peter Sullivan was sentenced to life in prison. From that moment on, his life followed a completely different path. One he said he never should have been on. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. The years became decades. 38 years. 38 years behind bars. Outside, everything changed. Technology advanced. Families grew. New generations came and went. But inside that prison, time stood still. The same walls. The same routine. The same sentence. And through it all, he kept saying the same thing. I didn't do it. For most people, the story ended there. A young woman had been murdered. A man had been convicted. Justice, it seemed, had been served. The case was closed. But sometimes, cases don't stay closed forever. Sometimes, something doesn't sit right. And in this case, that feeling never completely disappeared. Years later, questions began to surface. About the evidence used in the trial. About how the investigation had been handled. About whether everything had been as solid as it first appeared. At first, those questions were quiet, easy to ignore, but they didn't go away. Because over time, one thing changed everything: science. Advances in DNA testing made it possible to examine evidence in ways that simply weren't available in 1986. And that opened the door to something new: a second look. The evidence from the original case was tested again, carefully, thoroughly. And what they found changed everything. The DNA did not match Peter Sullivan. That single discovery shattered the foundation of the case. Because if the DNA didn't belong to him, then the story that put him in prison no longer held together. In 2025, the Court of Appeal quashed his conviction. After 38 years in prison, Peter Sullivan was finally free. He is now 68 years old. He went into prison as a younger man and walked out after nearly 4 decades of his life had already passed. But this is where the story becomes even more difficult, because this isn't a simple ending. Diane Sindall is still gone. She never got the chance to grow older, never got the chance to live the life she was building. Everything she could have been stopped at 21. And the person who killed her has still not been found. That's what makes this case so powerful and so troubling. A young woman lost her life. A man lost 38 years of his. One crime, 2 lives destroyed. And one question that still hasn't been answered. If Peter Sullivan didn't kill Diane Sindall, who did? What do you think? Do you believe this was a failure of justice? Or something even deeper? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more real stories like this, subscribe. Because sometimes the truth doesn't disappear. It just takes time to be found.
All I want to do now is get on with my own life and carry on as I was before. Live my time out now. That's all I've ever wanted in life. I can't forgive them for what they've done to me, because it's going to be there for the rest of my life. I've got to carry that burden until I can get an apology of what happened from everyone else who's been involved.